good to know that the £30,000 a year isn't getting entirely wasted on hockey sticks and equilateral triangles, but I'm not sure this is going to get parents fighting in the corridors to reserve their spots for Beatrice, Camilla and Cleopatra. When federal agents storm... Danny, the lack of titles! The lack of subtitles makes it insane! This video is brought to you by Policy Genius. Yes, I come up with the business place topic sometimes. Danny also comes up with business place topics. Danny writes for this channel. I read the script. Sam adds the finest of vintage memes. And I saw I was just browsing around the internet doing my thing, and I saw a headline in a newspaper. It says poor need more money. And I was like, oh, you gonna get blazed! And so that's what we have today, news headlines that are actually real. Let's go. During a typical lunch break, back in the heaving canteen of the vast... Tripping over this goddamn mic wire again. And don't be telling me in the comments, get a wireless mic, Simon. Get a wireless mic. Why didn't you have a wireless mic? They're the best. And I'm like, yo, because I don't want to spend my life changing batteries, and also often they don't have a little warning thing when they've run out of batteries, so you just be like da 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 da, and then you watch it afterwards, you're like, oh, why does the audio cut out at 4 minutes in of a 45-minute video? Its batteries ran out, didn't they? No, God! So no, I'm not getting a wireless mic. During a typical lunchtime break back in the heaving canteen of the vast Sheffield offices of the Royal Bank of Scotland, I could often be found munching away on my sausage and marmalade sandwiches. Oh, Danny, no. While frowning over the communist crossword of the day in that day's edition of the Marxist Messenger. And occasionally I'd peek over the top of the pages to take a glimpse of the front page headlines and other newspapers that my colleagues had buried their faces within. You can learn a lot about the character of someone just from their choice of newspaper. Yes, you can. I've mentioned this many times, but I used to work in a newsagents, and when I was younger, and would sell a bunch of newspapers, and all sorts of types would come into the newspaper. Some would be buying the Daily Telegraph, some would be buying the Times, some would be buying the Sun, some unfortunate souls would be purchasing the Daily Mail, and then we come to the Daily Express. Now, I only believe that the Daily Express really existed, and this is a well-worn joke in the UK, to make people who buy the Daily Mail feel better about themselves. Because, you're buying the Daily Mail, but at least you're not as racist as someone who reads the Daily Express. But there were 3 Daily Expresses that were into the shop every day, and they would always get sold to the 3 same people. Oh, and boy did we sadly sell a lot of Daily Mail. Centre manager Diane always opted for the Financial Times, which doesn't even try to get creative or interesting with its headlines. Good. Usually plumping for something like banks still making lots of money. IT coordinator Malcolm often had his nose in The Sun, a tabloid paper with little content because they invest nearly all of their effort into fantastic headlines. For example, when Osama bin Laden was killed by US military special... I can see it already. I can see the next line, what the headline is. It's good. It's good. Wait for it. US Military Special Operations Unit in 2011. Was that 10 years ago? God damn. They went with the short and snappy bin bagged. Yes. Oh, is that UK specific? Because we call a trash bin, just the trash a bin. So Osama bin bagged, bin bag. Yep, you understand. If you don't understand, that's okay. We're moving on.
I don't understand. I don't understand, bitch. I don't understand.
HR manager Richard was a regular... Danny, I'm really glad that you're not using everyone's full names like you often do, because then it's like, oh God, I gotta not say people's full names, because you don't want to be they have a reasonable expectation of privacy. It was a regular reader of the right-wing stirring hate rag, the Daily Mail. Danny and I, same page, which is devoted to making its readership angry with headlines such as illegal immigrants to receive £1 million a day in benefits while British war veterans are gassed like badgers in Trafalgar Square. Honestly, Daily Mail not far off. Meanwhile, security guard Charlie clearly wasn't too bad about absorbing real news as he bought the Daily Sport, a sensationalist soft porn newspaper which delivers gripping headlines such as "Woman gives birth to 7-pound trout." I 100% believe that could be a real headline on the Daily Sport. It's just comedy, basically. Comedy and breasts. I've been posting my Here's another one. I've been posting my letters in the dog poo bin for 2 years, says confused pensioner. Took you 2 years to realise. Ghost of Michael Jackson bummed my monkey. These are real. Apparently, not everyone has the capacity to concoct a captivating caption that conveys a concise concept. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Continue.
Not everyone has the capacity to concoct a captivating caption that conveys a concise conspectus of a compelling column cooked up for the consumption of a cretin. That was fucking take 2! Yes!
Verily, this vichyssoise of verbiage veers most verbose, so let me simply add that it's my very good honor to meet you, and you may call me V.
Daddy, chill.
And now and then, as a deadline grows ever nearer, it's entirely possible that headline makes it to print, which could possibly have done with a second opinion. It's not so bad on digital platforms where a rogue comma or a rogue thumbnail or a missing last 5 minutes of a video can be fixed up relatively quickly. Yeah, except if we actually get something to publication and we have to take it down, it's a major, it happens maybe once or twice a year, because I'm like, oh no, leave it. Because re-uploading a video, it just tanks it. It's never going to do as well second time round for whatever YouTube algorithmic purposes. So very rarely do we take something down. It has to be a pretty major screw up. So, yeah. But when a terrible headline makes it as far as the printing press, the paper in question is stuck with it for a whole day of merciless ridicule. And contrary to the popular British philosophy, today's news is tomorrow's fish and chip papers are truly bad. I've never heard that before, and I like it. Because in the UK, traditionally, although not anymore, obviously, because we have concerns about, our health these days, fish and chips used to be wrapped in old newspapers. Which is weird, isn't it? I mean, that print rubs off on your fingers. It's obviously going to get all over your fish. It's disgusting. A truly bad headline can live on forever, and not just because fish and chip shops stopped wrapping our takeaways in yesterday's newspapers in about 1983. The original Terminator had its infrared vision set on California's $48 billion share of the federal stimulus package dished out to the state in 2009. In particular, California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to make sure that not a single cent of the crucial funds got pissed away or misused. So he created the new post of Inspector General and awarded the position to former Los Angeles City Controller Laura Chick, who went on to release nearly 30 reports exposing the misspending of stimulus funds. I have to say, considering that there were $49 billion in that stimulus package, 30 reports of misspending actually seems, and I know we should all want zero, but it actually seems quite good. I mean, unless it was like they were really big, and that was just obviously. It's not. Okay, we're not dealing with a lot of data here. Let's just move on. You didn't want to mess with Laura Chick. She was already viewed as one of the most influential people in Los Angeles, hailed as a lone champion of good government, and had been responsible for just under 200 damning reports and audits on dubious city government activity. But we're diving back a little earlier into her career for this news story, shortly after she was first elected to the Los Angeles City Council in 1993. After her first 2 years serving in City Hall, Laura didn't seem particularly impressed with the behavior of some of her male colleagues. Surprising. And during a luncheon held at City Hall in honor of women police officers in 1995, Laura took to the stage as an invited panelist and made her feelings known. She declared that City Hall was the most sexist, good old boys work environment that she'd ever worked in, revealed how male colleagues had often made condescending remarks about her during council meetings, including the suggestion that it must be that time of the month again, whenever she dared to voice a criticism. Holy shit. The relatively recent past was the worst, and also, I mean, this still goes on. Present day is still a piece of shit. Now, I hate to be one of those people, because I'm always like, oh my god, just chill out with your wokeness. Who's like, men are so bad. Men are the worst. But men can be really I mean, I would never make a comment like that to a woman outside of someone I was extremely comfortable with, and I was 100% sure that they were aware it was a joke.
How dare you?
As well as making off-color jokes and passing around dirty pictures and cartoons. Oh my god, guys, stop sharing porn at work, it's weird. Laura concluded her speech to a very mixed reaction, as most of the audience were male, by suggesting that council members should be required to take gender sensitivity training before being allowed anywhere near City Hall, a strategy which was already in effect in LA police and fire departments. The LA, I mean, I don't think this should be something that is everywhere. Do I? Maybe I do. I don't know. For me, it sounds like if I was working in somewhere like this, I'd be like, I don't know, that sounds like a terrible way to spend an afternoon. Can't you just assume I'm not a piece of shit until I do something that shows me to be a piece of shit, and then I get sent to gender equality training? I don't know. Can't I do it? What if I'm not a dick? Although I suppose if I work for a company, I'm getting paid either way, so I'll be like, yeah, I'll do that. Is there going to be a little snack bar? Is there going to be coffee? Because that sounds a lot better than doing my job. The LA Times could have headlined the delicate story with councilwoman calls for gender sensitivity to combat allegations of sexist behaviour. That would be a good one. But instead, they went with something that might have seemed reasonably acceptable if you just spent time researching and writing about Laura Chick, but would have looked pretty offensive with zero context. Chick accuses some of her male colleagues of sexism. If they did that on purpose, it's not clever, it's just sexist. But if they made it by accident, that's really unfortunate and funny. The big question is, was the copy editor just a bit tired, or did he know exactly what he was doing? The Express Times, based in... You've got to look at what paper this is. If it's the Daily Mail, yeah, they did it on purpose. If it's the Daily Telegraph, no. Or the Financial Times, better example, no, they didn't do it on purpose, obviously. The Express Times, based in eastern Pennsylvania, have been talking to detectives and attorneys and prosecutors... Oh wait, that's the end of it. We don't actually find out. Danny doesn't dive into the paper. Thanks, Danny. It's just new entry. Okay.
Thank you so much for wasting my motherfucking time.
The Eastern Times, based in Pennsylvania. For some reason, Danny's not put subheads in today, so that's very confusing. Don't know, did they just get cut off somewhere? Did my printer run out of blue ink? Nope, the first one is there. The Express Times, based in Easton, Pennsylvania, have been talking to detectives and attorneys and prosecutors in 2009, and this led them to a grim realization, which they perfectly encapsulated in a game-changing headline. Brace yourselves, this is a bit of a shocker, homicide victims rarely talk to police. Because they're dead, aren't they? Thanks for pointing out the obvious joke, Simon. Well done, you big brain. This is probably why so many murder cases remain unsolved. The stiffs just don't want to play ball. They lack the basic decency to at least provide a few clues to the identity of their attacker, such as height, accent, clothing, and fragrance. I believe that fragrance is Rotting Turtle, which you can purchase at rottingturtle.co. It's a fragrance for all. Rotting Turtle is unisex. Rotting Badger is for men. And Corpse Flower, our latest edition, is for women. Yes, rottingturtle.co. Bizarre fragrances. Names. Great fragrances. Ooh, I like that. We should put that on the website. We can hardly blame the system for failing to capture these villains when the dead refuse to snitch. Sounds like lazy police, doesn't it? And if you want plenty of examples of lazy police, I've got a podcast, a true crime podcast called The Casual Criminalist, where it's like everyone is like, oh my god, police, do your job. Please do your job better. Reading the full story today, the point that the Express Times spectacularly failed to make is that police detectives usually have to stitch together the sequence of events from eyewitnesses, friends, and family members, as the victim is rarely in a position to give testimony before they die. Some victims might be still alive when the police arrive on the scene, but even then they probably won't be in the mood for a bit of gossip over coffee and a cupcake before they succumb to their wounds and technically evolve into a homicide victim.
I waited centuries to say that. Oh, say what you want, just don't breathe on me.
The whole article seemed to be a waste of space and doesn't really tell you anything that you probably couldn't have guessed. The media, filling up the 24-hour news cycle. What a surprise that they sometimes fill it with crap. An alternative and more effective headline for the piece might have been, detectives complain that time and resources are often drained by having to go out and detect things. Yes! Oh, police. And let me tell you about a word that is very similar to police, policy. I mean, in the way they're spelled, it's got absolutely nothing to do with the meaning. Obviously, it's completely different. One is a policy, one is the police. Totally different things. But that brings me to today's glorious sponsor, Policy Genius, getting you ready for your inevitable death. Oh, it gets morbid with Policy Genius, because we're talking about life insurance, something that you probably don't like to think about, but you definitely need, especially if you're like the main breadwinner in a family, because then if you pop your clogs, well, it's not brilliant for everyone left behind, is it? Think about that for a second, and then check out Policy Genius. Let me tell you more about them. There are things I have to tell you about them. They're marked in red in the copy, and if I don't do that, they're always like, fact, boy! They're in red for a bloody reason! They're not like that, actually. The guys at Policy Genius, I think it's through an agency. But I assume the people at Policy Genius are very friendly, but the people at the agency also very friendly. What a fantastic insight into your business life, Simon. Thank you so much. Nobody cares.
Can I hear it again?
So yeah, basically life insurance, it's the responsible thing to do. It's not really nice to think about. You should think about it though. Policy Genius makes it all very easy. What do? I should tell you what they do. Well, they compare quotes from over a dozen top insurers all in one place. Why compare? I think we know that, because then you can get the best price and the best policy for your money, right? You could save 50% or more on life insurance, yes, by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. Beautiful. You could save $1,300 or more per year on life insurance by using Policy Genius to compare policies. Also, importantly, They don't work for the insurance companies, so they're not all biased. They work for you, which means that they're incentivized to get you the best policy rather than the best policy for the insurance company, which means the insurance company makes more money off you, which is something you absolutely don't want. Eligible applicants can get covered in as little as a week thanks to an award-winning policy option that swaps the standard medical exam requirement for a simple phone call. This exclusive policy was recently ranked number 1 by Forbes, higher than options from Ladder, Ethos, and Bestow. Brilliant. I mean, this is all very good, isn't it? I mean, it's not something, like I say, I've said this like 3 times, not something you want to think about, something you have to think about, and the easiest way to do it is with Policy Genius. It's just, you save $1,300? Yeah, policygenius.com/blaze is the place to go. Get started right now. When it comes to insurance, it's nice to get it right. The global financial crisis of 2007 to 2009 may have claimed many businesses, jobs, homes, livelihoods, and even a couple of bankers' bonuses in the Western world. Oh no! The biggest disaster was when the bankers didn't make a ridiculous amount of money as they were making before. It was so sad. I honestly still haven't gotten over it. But the situation was looking even bleaker in the poorest developing countries as food prices soared, international trading dried up, and millions of families were pushed into extreme poverty. During a news conference in 2009, the World Bank president Robert Zoellick took the opportunity to highlight the oncoming human development calamity and strongly encouraged donor nations to consider increasing the size of their pledges to help save lives in the poorest regions of the world. Veteran journalist Deb Reichman, I don't know if that's how you say the last name, but I just gave it that extra German zest because he sounds German. One of the very first to break the emerging story via the Associated Press, and modified versions of her report would get printed in hundreds of newspapers across the globe. But most of the newspaper editors decided to tweak Deb's original headline, but it didn't appear to be making any dramatic revelations on first glance. This is the one I found and sent to Danny as inspiration for this article. World Bank says poor need more money. No shit, World Bank. I'm sure that it was only a minor glitch, though. Deb Reichman has enjoyed a long career spanning 37 years and still works today in her current position as a White House reporter for the Associated Press, where I'm sure she comes out with regular insightful observations such as Trump still didn't win the election. Not according to the internet, or like that crazy section of the internet where it's like, they stole it! It's like, no, he lost the election. I mean, there's a big fair election, but they're like, it's not fair. And I'm like, no, it's just, you just think it's not fair because your man lost, didn't he? He lost.
You are a rude, terrible person.
And rich people don't know what a Greyhound bus even looks like. Oh my God, I wish I could forget what a Greyhound bus looks like. I have to say, I wonder how that Greyhound bus video went down because I was watching it back and I'm like, God, it makes me look a bit like an entitled prick, doesn't it? We'll see what that comment section looks like. The Cheltenham Ladies' College was founded in 1853 and is often considered to be the girls' version of Eton College, where sadly you're still not allowed to attend unless you can prove you have a penis. I didn't realise Eton was still just for boys. I'm surprised that's allowed these days. You certainly need a few quid to send your little girl to Cheltenham. Prices are reported to be around the figure of £19,000 a year for day girls or nearly £30,000 a year for boarders. However, attendance figures have been declining in recent years, and more and more parents have come around to the idea that sending your kid to a single-sex school is a silly idea, which should have gone out of fashion in 1953. I agree. I think kids should go to mixed schools. I think it's just better for everyone, because otherwise you get to 18 and it's like, never really interacted with girls before, have I? I went to a school that was a mixed school, but it had been like a same-sex school until I was like, I don't know, not me, but before I joined the school. It was maybe like 5 or 10 years before it had just been boys, so it was still like 80% dudes, and I don't know. I think it would have been a bit better if it was like more mixed. I'm sure it is now. These days it's probably much more balanced because it's been, like a good 20 years since I started at that school. More than that. Jesus, I'm getting old. But back in 2011, the departing principal, Vicky Tuck, strongly disagreed with this view. In an interview with the Gloucestershire Echo, she made a somewhat bewildering and incoherent argument that girls learn in a different way to boys and benefit from an almost exclusively female team of teaching staff. Vicky, this isn't Victorian England. What are you talking about? Miss Tuck, felt that an all-girl boarding school... No, we don't go to the school. We don't have to call her Miss Tuck or Mom. We can call her whatever the we want.
Really, bitch? You what?
Vicky felt that all-girls boarding schools have an important role to play for those families rich enough to pay the fees, and she's expecting... It's not something you can say. It's like, yeah, we provide a great experience for people who can afford it. Holy shit. And she expected to see a fresh boom in attendance over the coming years. There were a number of different potential headlines that the Gloucestershire Echo could have also pulled out of the hat for this one. Head predicts comeback for UK girls' schools in next decade. Principal still has faith in benefits of single-sex education. Miss Tuck annoyed that rich parents now choose to let their girls mingle with idiot boys. But instead they went for the slightly more alarming option. Girls' schools still offering something special. Wait, I wonder if this is a very exclusively British expression, or maybe not. I've never heard it in like an American context, but it's absolutely something that would be said like in, movies or whatever. Maybe it is, but like giving head, or just head, means oral sex performed from a woman to a man. You're welcome, world. Good to know that the £30,000 a year isn't getting entirely wasted on hockey sticks and equilateral triangles, but I'm not sure this is going to get parents fighting in the corridors to reserve their spots for Beatrice, Camilla and Cleopatra. When federal agents storm... Danny, the lack of titles! The lack of subtitles makes it insane, because I'm talking about a private school with an unfortunate thing, and then we're like, when federal agents storm... What the f*** federal agents doing storming a girls' school in the UK? Danny, there needs to be a headline! You expect me to read this ahead? When federal agent storms the wholesale guns and ammo branch of the Cheltenham school in... Nah, I'm just joking. Wholesale guns and ammo shop in South Tulsa in 1997. Is Tulsa one of those places in America where it's actually Tulsa? Because I know there's that other place called somewhere. Tucson. But it's spelled Tucson. Tulsa's not the same as that, right? No. Is Tulsa that place where Chandler and Friends has to go to when it's really boring? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. It wasn't made entirely clear what they were looking for. Maybe guns and ammo. The owner of the store, Tao Din Lee, had already a bit of a criminal history from drug offenses. So why is the guy with drug offenses and a criminal history allowed to run a gun shop? I feel like not having a criminal record should be like, part of the thing. So it's possible they were checking to see whether he was selling under-the-counter cocaine teeth drops for his more dentally challenged trigger-happy customers. After obtaining a search warrant, they decided to storm his house while they were all dressed for the occasion. Wait, dressed for what occasion? Danny, I'm so confused today. And it was here that they came across a massive hidden stash of highly illegal explosives, landmines, hand grenades, sticks of dynamites, and all sorts of crazy largely designed to blow people up. Oh my god. Whatever you got that search warrant for, I'm glad you got it. On top of that, Tao Din Lee still appeared to be indulging in the nose candy too. He later pled guilty to possessing unregistered destructive devices, carrying a firearm during a drug trafficking crime, and possessing a firearm while being off his tits. He's going to prison for a long time. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. That's extremely reasonable. What? America? It's like, yeah, he sold some cocaine and had a gun that wasn't his. Life in prison. And this guy's like running a gun shop. He was on cocaine. He had an illegal gun. He's got bombs. 5 years. No, 10 years. Sorry, 10 years. Wait, no, 5 years? He was released after 5. What is going on, America?
Excuse me, what are you doing?
But when Tulsa World reported the story of the local initial raids, the headline really didn't convey the whole picture. They simply went with federal agents raid gun shop, find weapons. Mwah! Great work, feds. The next day they raided the medication room of a local hospital, but it's not my place to reveal the full shocking details of what they discovered. This next one wasn't actually a printed news headline, yet although it was only published digitally on the website of American blogger and media personality Paris Hilton in 2017, nobody on his team has ever bothered to change it since the beginning of the merciless mocking. The story itself is quite sweet. 11-year-old Dawn Garagust from Statesboro, Georgia, suffers from mitochondrial disease, a progressive chronic illness which causes mental, physical, and developmental difficulties. Young Dawn is also a massive fan of Star Trek, like a legend. I'm not sure which series in the franchise is her favourite, as a new one seems to pop up every week these days and it's difficult to keep track, which is glorious because we went like a bloody long time without any new Star Treks. I'm very happy, and no, the new movies do not count. But for the purposes of this story, I'm hoping that Dawn has at least something of a soft spot for the crew of Star Trek The Next Generation. The best generation.
Okay, Boomer.
One of Dawn's dreams was to make it to the sci-fi and fantasy convention Dragon Con in Georgia of 2017, where a number of Star Trek stars were scheduled to put in an appearance. And thanks to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, this dream came true, but in a bigger way than she ever imagined. Bald, generic Enterprise captain Sir Patrick Stewart. And no, I don't really mean that. He was as brilliant as Picard. And no, I don't really mean that. He was as brilliant as Picard.
You could do so.
And no, I don't really mean that. He was brilliant as Picard, and he's also an all-round top bloke. And he was due to appear at Dragon Con, and he got wind of Dawn's trip. Yeah, Patrick Stewart's a legend. He got in touch with the Foundation and Dawn's parents to organise a surprise VIP private meet and greet with Dawn, in which they warmly embraced, exchanged kind words, and then chewed the fat over all things Star Trek and how much better he was than Captain Kirk. You're goddamn right! To say this was a special moment for Dawn would be a massive understatement. She was absolutely ecstatic to meet her hero in the flesh and form a new friendship with him. And how did the Perez Hilton website headline this beautiful encounter? Patrick Stewart surprises fan with life-threatening illness. Woo! Well, gee, thanks, Patrick, but just a signed autograph would have done nicely, thank you. That headline sounds more like the kind of stunt William Shatner would have pulled after convincing everyone at the convention that Leonard Nimoy used to drown kittens in his dressing room. Ah, yes. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy didn't get on for a long time, right? Or at all, right?
I don't care!
The New York Times ran, I don't like it when you hear about TV shows and it's, they really hated each other behind the scenes. You're like, it's kind of a bummer, isn't it? You want them to be friends. Like, that's how, come on. I'm listening to a great podcast right now called The Delta Flyers, which is with Garrett Wang and Robert Duncan McNeil, who played two characters on Star Trek Voyager, which is also excellent. And it's kind of like talking all the behind the scenes stuff. And they also talk so much smack. They're like, yeah, honestly, the writing of this episode, I'm not even sure what they were thinking because it makes no sense. And it's like, whoever directed this, what were they thinking? It's such a good podcast. They're also really nice and they talk about it and they have all these great memories and stuff. And it's also like brutally honest, which I like.
I don't care!
In about 20 years, Danny's going to have the Basement podcast where he talks about, all the went down in the basement. If he ever makes it out of there, am I right? The New York Times ran a bizarre headline in 1999, which might initially sound as if the editor had been putting on a bit too much sugar on his Honey Nut Fruit Loops, but it's possibly a contender for the most sensible headline in the script. And for once, we can't really blame the newspaper. Here's the headline. Statistics show teenage pregnancy drops off significantly after age 25. How does this make sense? Now, this might seem like a baffling proclamation to make. Now, I'm no mathswitz, but if I had to make a fumbling stab in the dark about the age at which teenage pregnancy drops off, I have to say, probably around the age of 20. But this was no fudged headline. In fairness to the New York Times, it was actually a genuine quote from Republican State Senator Mary Ann Tabido from Colorado Springs. And although the paper was probably poking fun at the state senator's choice of words, there might be a seed of logic buried somewhere in her statement. Because she was more than likely talking about the male partner in the equation. That makes more sense. But when we talk about teenage pregnancy, immediately what comes to our mind is pregnant women, not dudes. It's not uncommon for the male partner to be considerably older than the young teenage mother, and what Mary seems to be getting at is that the rate of teenage pregnancies falls after the father in the relationship has passed the ripe old age of 25. Still probably best not to ask Mary any deeply probing questions about the rising number of teenage grandfathers in the north of England, as that could get seriously confusing. That's impossible. That's definitely impossible. I'm pretty sure. Finally, we may never know how Jay Crunley bust up his hand in 2003. Jay was a writer for the Tulsa World newspaper in Oklahoma, but he also penned a fair few novels during his long career, some of which got adapted into movies. In fact, one of them, Quick Change, got adapted into two movies, the 1985 film Hold Up, which I'd never heard of until today, and the brilliant 1990 version Quick Change, which starred none other than Bill Murray, who also wore his director's baseball cap on that one. It's possibly one of the most underrated movies in the entire filmography of the cool grandpa and former occasional douchebag. Yeah, we did a previous video about Bill Murray, how he chilled out a bit in his old age and just became more legendary than he already was. But it can't have been much fun at the typewriter for Jay when he was suffering with a dodgy hand. I speak from painful experience, as someone managed to get through 3 brain Why is the new name so hard to say? Brain Blaze scripts earlier this year when my right hand just randomly swelled up into a mutant paw. Oh yeah, Danny sent me a picture of this, or he posted it on Twitter. It was intense. And I ended up tapping the keys with my nose. Jay was having trouble carrying out his other daily routine tasks too, such as taking out the garbage bags, making himself lunch, walking the dog, and using a heavy-duty pneumatic drill to dig a nice new garden pond in his backyard for the summer. Jay, what are you up to? Fortunately, help was at hand when a nice couple from a couple of streets away knocked on his door. Although Jay may have caught a glimpse of this couple from time to time, they were practically strangers. He didn't even know their names. But they had heard on the neighborhood Vine that Jay was having difficulty with his hand, and they were there to offer any kind of help that they could. A grateful Jay sent them to work straight away on taking out garbage bags which had abandoned in the kitchen in frustration after they started leaking coffee beans all over the floor. Oh god. When a garbage bag leaks, it's like, this is the worst thing ever. Why? Well done for that insight, Simon. Genius. No one ever thought of that before. He actually was deeply moved by this random act of kindness from a couple of strangers, though, and he later took the time to pen a quick article for the Tulsa World in which he conveyed both his gratitude and the restoration of his faith in human nature. However, Jay wasn't responsible for the headline, which was cooked up by the editor, who was either in a bit of a rush or was just blatantly taking the piss. The headline read, "One-armed man applauds the kindness of strangers." Oh no, this is an accident, but it's so bad. We can only imagine how poor Jay felt about his editor's clumsy handiwork, but I'd like to think that he gave him a very slow clap. Oh, Danny, no. 10 bonus bizarre headlines. The reasoning behind some bizarre headlines has been lost in mist of time, while other headlines are reasonably self-explanatory on their own without having to delve into the backstory. Here's a final roundup of some of the weirdest genuine headlines to have taken up valuable space on a newspaper. Miracle cure kills 5th patient. Oh no. Bugs flying around with wings are flying bugs. What? Hospitals resort to hiring doctors. Stupid, expensive doctors. Who needs them? Ex-minister breaks silence and says nothing. Parents keep kids at home to protest school closure. Michael J. Fox shakes off the comedy. No, comedy dust. No, that's not right. There's one more. Come on. Come on. Why? For fuck's sake. Murderer says detective ruined his reputation. Savage. Students get first-hand job experience. China may be using sea to hide its submarines. State population to double by 2040. Babies to blame. Yes! Let's put that back neatly in its place. This has been an episode of Business. No, it hasn't. This has been an episode of Brain Blaze. Thank you so much for watching. Policy Genius, link below. Thank you for watching. I said that already. What am I doing? I'm going to sit down. Simply went with federal agents